What up? What up? We haven't done one of these in a little while. Excited to get back in the saddle for the divisional round weekend. I'm Pete Overzet. This is the Fantasy Life DFS Jam. It's the last, what I would consider, viable slate on the year. Yes, there's 2-game slates in the conference championship week. There's showdown slates. There's pick'ems to build for the Super Bowl. But as far as actually getting to draft, this is the last week where we have, 8 teams playing, lots of high-end firepower, lots of superstars going. And want to go out with a bang. So we're going to hang out, chop it up for the next hour or so. And I do think it's a particularly good week to dig into our projections at Fantasy Life as well, because a lot of the players we're taking in the final rounds of drafts or putting in our DFS lineups, these are a little bit more fringy type plays than we're used to playing. You can normally get guys in the 6th round of these battle royale drafts who project for a decent amount of points. This week, we're down here looking at guys who maybe project for only 6 or 7 points. We have to kind of parse through the Pat Bryants of the world, the Brandon Cooks of the world, and figure out who is the best play. So we're going to use some ADP. We're going to use our projections, some of our rankings, and we can talk through this slate here that I'm very excited to draft in. And if you guys got any questions in the chat, feel free to hit me up. If you guys have any builds you'd like me to try here on Underdog, we can do that. But otherwise, we're just going to go through this like we normally do. I think we can do a little bit of a top-down look at this slate. You can always pull up our odds screener here at Fantasy Life to look at the spreads and more specifically the over-unders here. Let me get my screen all situated. All right, here we go. So yeah, the first game, and I'm particularly excited about this first game because I am going to be in attendance at Mile High for the Denver Broncos hosting the Buffalo Bills. It just so happened as a pure coincidence that every year with my college buddies, we do a trip, the divisional round weekend. We watch football, play poker. It's a nice little annual meetup with my friends. And we booked Denver, months ago. We are already going to an Avalanche game on Friday. But then when we saw that the Broncos were hosting, we said, all right, we got to find a way to get to this game. So we procured tickets and we will be in attendance here. It doesn't have the biggest over-under. It's 44.5. That kind of checks out to me in the sense that both of these are solid defenses. The Bills don't have a lot of offensive weaponry right now outside of James Cook in Josh Allen. And it's not a spot where I see, a ton of fireworks as far as scoring. But at 44.5, it's an okay total. It's not awful. It's not quite like this one we'll discuss here in a second with the Texans and the Patriots, but also on a regular full slate, it would be, mediocre to slightly below average as far as the general totals we're looking to target as far as game stacks and stuff. Following that, on Saturday night, we have the Seahawks also coming off the bye like the Broncos, hosting the 49ers, who are unfortunately going to be without George Kittle. That certainly stings as far as kind of the potential for this game to pop off from a fantasy standpoint. Total of 45 here. And the Seahawks are pretty big favorites. But man, when you combine divisional rivals, when you combine a kind of playoff tested team with a ton of veterans who have been there before in the Niners, I'm certainly not counting them out in the same way I was tempted to count them out versus the Eagles last week. And they still managed to string together some really strong drives. And you have guys like Jake Tungus and Demarcus Robinson stepping up and really kind of filling those holes for them. This third game and our first game on Sunday, this is the one with kind of the gross total. It's the New England Patriots hosting the Houston Texans. Another bummer injury for this game is I'm really doubtful that Nico Collins is going to play. He suffered a concussion in that wild card game against the Steelers. He didn't practice yesterday. I doubt he practices today. We can keep an eye on this. There have been a few instances where I'm trying to remember the example of who had the concussion and then played the following week. I don't know if it was like a Waddle. Maybe someone in the chat can remind me. But we've seen crazier things happen. But generally, when these guys suffer that concussion, they are out the next week, especially on a short week for Nico as well. Played on Monday night and then has to turn around and play on Sunday. So not holding out a lot of hope there. New England, though, gets another home game, but they get this Texans defense that is, I think clearly the best defense remaining here. I guess the Broncos could make a case for being number 2. behind them, but understand why this total is so low. And then finally, we have the game where I think the most fireworks should be expected. And that's with the Bears hosting the Rams. This is a 47-point total here. It actually opened up a lot higher. I think it opened up at 49.5. It's come down a little bit here. But I think the combination of the Rams firepower along with the Chicago Bears secondary just being really bad, that is going to contribute to a high total. And basically the over-under element here, from my perspective, just comes down to, hey, can the Bears put up points again? Can Caleb play, pants on fire football where he's making these throws down the field and we get things sped up? But yeah, if I'm looking for the one game that I think could have, 60 plus points or something, it's definitely Rams and Bears. What's up, Colin? Colin says, I was just saying that no one is doing content for this slate, and then boom, Pete is on the screen. Yeah, no, it's some people are winding down. I saw lots of like general divisional round previews and stuff, but yeah, it's a long season. People are starting to taper off their content, but I will have my two other shows today as well. So obviously hosting this one on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel, and then I'll have two on my channel later this afternoon, a DraftKings specific breakdown with Brick 75 and Uticow at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then at 2 p.m. Eastern, right after that, I'll have the full Underdog Battle Royale breakdown with Numi. My former Badge Bros, Numi, but with John and Nez. So you can tune in for that if you're looking for more content on this slate. What is up, Steven? How are we doing? Steven says, I wonder if the Bears run more to keep Stafford off the field and also throw a lot to Loveland. Now, this is probably easier said than done. Yeah, for sure. I think if Ben Johnson had his way, it would be DeAndre Swift had 20 carries, Kyle Monungai had 20 carries, just milk that clock. But the Rams are going to score points and they're going to have to play catch up. So I do think the game state is a very good thing to consider in these scenarios. And when you're drafting teams, like I do really like the idea of, I drafted a team earlier that was Kyron Williams, and then I did a back stack with the Bears of like, hey, if Kyron's getting these early touchdowns and then the Bears have to play catch up, that tells a pretty logical story in my mind. But I also could see those scenarios that you're talking about where if the Bears have a lead where Caleb isn't throwing quite as much and they're just running the piss out of the ball there. All right, let's see here. So we kind of did a little high level overview here. Let's do a quick glance at our projections before we hop in some drafts. And then we can kind of reference these throughout. And I'm going to pull up some half-point PPR scoring here just so we are in line with what we're going to be drafting on Underdog. Obviously, if you're playing on DraftKings, you'll want to look at the full-point PPR projections. And you can actually go to our DFS tab where we have ownership, the projection, floor, ceiling specifically for these slates. We can actually use the FanDuel scoring because it is essentially the exact same as Underdog. But yeah, doing a quick glance at the quarterback position, we kind of have Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford in a tier. You can see here Stafford only projects 0.7 points worse than Allen, which earlier in the season, you really never would have seen this. Allen, with his rushing and with a full complement of weapons, is generally lapping these pocket passers from a projection standpoint. But it does make sense to me that on the road, so much of his wide receiver room is banged up that Stafford in a plus matchup against a bad defense would project fairly close to him. After that, we have Drake May projected for 17.7, then Caleb Williams 16.7, Bo Nix 16.3, and then there's these three guys, and they are going to be the last three drafted in Battle Royales, and that's Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, and CJ Stroud. And the temptation would be to not waive these guys and being like, I don't want to deal with those guys. Like, I don't want to deal with Brock Purdy, at Seattle, or CJ Stroud at New England. But I think that would be a mistake because on this slate where 6 quarterbacks are going to be drafted in every contest, these 3 at the end are going to be less than 50% drafted. And we can go and look at the ADP right now as well, just to see how this is going to shake out potentially. But if we go over here and we look at the QB ADP, Allen 4.6, Stafford 9.9, Caleb 17.7, May 24, and Bo Nix 28. These 5 right here are going to be drafted in almost 100% of contests. But then you get a gap to 32.7 Brock Purdy, 33.9 Sam Darnold, and 35.6 CJ Stroud. And so these three are all going to end up being mixed and matched as the final quarterback selected in these drafts. But that low owned draft percentage gives them a really interesting, hook as far as being a viable click on these slates. It's really the same thing that happened last week with Jordan Love, who was kind of down in this sub 30% drafted range. You get a 30-point score from a sub 30% drafted guy that immediately puts your lineups in a really unique position to make some noise. Now, the counter to that is Jordan Love versus the Chicago secondary is a much better play than any of these three other quarterbacks. But I think there's some decent stuff to like here, specifically Sam Darnold at home versus San Francisco. San Francisco secondary has been very vulnerable. I think Darnold can put up a good game there. CJ Stroud too. It's not the greatest matchup at New England, and especially without Nico Collins, but New England's secondary, isn't like this elite shutdown unit. I think you can definitely score on them. So I will certainly be taking shots on some of these guys. I won't do as quite of an in-depth breakdown on every single player here. But looking at running back, I just wanted to kind of point out a couple of tiers here. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is in a tier of his own. Then you have James Cook kind of in a secondary tier at 15.1 points. And then I'd put RJ Harvey and Kyron Williams kind of in a tier. Then you have a tier here with DeAndre Swift, Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Charbonnet, basically three guys who are the 1A in kind of a two-headed backfield. The one projection here that I will probably IKB is I think I like Woody Marks a little bit more than this. The fact that Woody Marks, one, had his best game of the season versus the Steelers on Monday, and two, faces basically no backfield competition, which isn't the same for Swift, Stevenson, and Sharps. I would have Marks probably sixth in my projections right alongside DeAndre Swift. That's just me. And then you're down here to kind of the 1B backs, Trevion Henderson, Blake Corum, Kyle Monangai. And I wouldn't really mess around with any backs after Monangai, Corum, and Henderson. Ty Johnson should be back this week, but you can see here it's almost a full 2-point projection gap from Monangai down to the Ty Johnsons, the Nick Chubbs, the Jaleel McLaughlins. I think if you're throwing darts on this slate, you want to do it at the wide receiver position and try to get as many of these top running backs as early as possible in your drafts. At wide receiver, we are loaded at the top. Puka Nacua, JSN, coincidentally projecting for the exact same amount of points here, 18 points. They are very stellar picks, obviously. You then have Devontae Adams, Sutton, Diggs, Juwan Jennings, Khalil Shakir, some wide receiver ones for these teams. And then you'll see here this long flat tier of basically players projected between like 6 to 7 or 8 points. It's Luther Burden, it's Higgins, it's Christian Kirk, Pearsall, Pat Bryant, Kayshon Boutte, DJ Moore, Roma Dunze. This is what I think is the most important element of this specific slate. Like, there are these thin wide receivers that all probably only project for, 3 to 4 targets, 3 to 4 receptions, but nailing which one of these goes off, because one of these guys is going to have a big game, similar to how Christian Kirk went off in the wild card round. If we can identify which one of these guys is best set up for a big game, that will go a long way in determining this slate. Tight end is kind of gross this week with no George Kittle. Colson Loveland, the clear top tight end. I think Hunter Henry and Dalton Schultz are the next in a tier. Dalton Schultz specifically getting the bump without Nico makes him, for me, kind of, I think, the clear 2. But if you want to have Henry over him, I certainly understand it. And then you have AJ Barner, Kincaid, Parkinson, Tongus, and Higbee. And I am pretty interested in both those Rams tight ends. Colby Parkinson had the pretty spectacular TD catch there at the end of the game, but Higbee was right in line with him as far as route participation, as far as targets. So I like Higbee just as much as Parkinson, and I think you can mix and match those guys. So there you have it. Like I said, it's a little bit of a thinner slate here, and we'll be able to see that as I hop into some drafts. But I do think some really fun angles, specifically with the wide receivers, and we can try to kind of parse that as we hop in our first draft here. All right, we got the 103 here, which with Puka and JSN generally going 1-2, that'll make CMC, I think, the pretty clear running back 1 and first pick for me. We can look at the flex here, and you can see we actually are projecting CMC for more points than Puka and JSN. So you could certainly take CMC as early as 101 if you wanted to. But man, the matchups in the ceiling for Puka and JSN are, very hard to pass on here. Steven says same with the Broncos as well, to keep Allen off of the field as much as possible. Yeah, I am. That's we had what? We had 4 really good wild card games. The Chargers Patriots game and the Steelers and Texans game didn't yield a ton of fantasy production. I'm worried this weekend slate's going to be a little more similar to those latter 2 games than the former. But CMC goes first here, so we'll grab JSN. But yeah, I just think we're going to see a lot of defensive battles. We have a lot of teams who I think their strength is running the ball, but we also have, that the Denver Bills game, like I could see it get a little fun. Bo Nix and Josh Allen both have this kind of volatile style of play. They scramble, they extend the plays, they take shots downfield. So, I could see a few of these getting fun, but yeah, the most likely scenario is we see a lot of running the ball, a lot of defense here. And that's just kind of what happens with some of this playoff football. All right. So this next spot, I like Colston Loveland, but I much prefer being able to lock up a running back here. And I'm really okay with either Kyron Williams or RJ Harvey here. So I'm going to be excited to get either one of these. Kyron Williams is ceding a little bit of the rushing work to Corum. You can see he's been down here in the 12 to 13. I do actually think push come to shove, straight up Harvey is my preferred over of these two. I believe our rankings have it. Do our rankings have it? Yeah, we have Harvey over Kyron as well. I think this is an awesome spot for RJ Harvey. There's going to be no J.K. Dobbins back this week. The Bills are one of the biggest run funnels in the league. Their pass defense has been pretty solid, but they just get gashed up the middle. And I think that's what the game plan is going to be, is a ton of interior rushes for RJ Harvey here. So give me RJ Harvey here at pick 10, and I'll pair him with JSN, and love this start here as far as getting JSN at 3 and Harvey at pick 10. Some interesting picks in this draft. The JP here pulled up Cortland Sutton to pair him with Devontae Adams. We get a double onesie selection here from JT. He goes Josh Allen and Loveland. And then Mr. Woody takes naked Matthew Stafford, which I haven't seen a ton in my drafts. It's normally the Adams or the Puka drafter. On a small slate, I don't think it's an awful selection, but I would be stacking him with one of the tight ends here. You take Stafford without Puka Adams. How is that going to work out for you? Well, he's probably throwing, touchdowns to the tight ends would be how I would tell that story. All right, we're back on the clock. We could take Charbonnet and kind of play a Seattle kind of dominate spot here, which I don't mind. I also like Ramondre Stevenson a good bit. We do have Ramondre projected slightly better than Charbonnet. I kind of want to play this angle of a Seattle route, and all of the points basically come via Darnold to JSN and then Charbonnet on the ground. We'll give that a shot here. But I do think the pick that makes the most sense in this range is like the Ramondre, Woody Marks, JSN. I guess let's look at our flex and see how those guys compare projection-wise to the Jawan Jennings of the world. And you'll see it here, right? So Sharbs, 10.1, Ramondre, 10.2. All of these guys projecting better than those wide receivers. Jawan Jennings down at 8.2. So I do think this is a week where you still really want to fill your flex spot with a running back. And sure, there will be instances where you get some wide receiver fallers and the wide receiver 3 builds make some sense. But just in general, you can see here that even the lesser 1B backs on this slate Kenneth Walker, Travion Henderson, they project more than the Jawan Jennings, the Khalil Shakurs of the world. All right, so I have a wide receiver, tight end, and quarterback left. Let's see here. I'm not too worried about where I go at tight end. I'm also not too worried about anyone taking Sam Darnold from me. So I think I can just pick my favorite. And I do think Diggs is a cut above these other wide receivers. I think there's kind of a drop off down to DJ Moore and Kirk. So let's go with Diggs here. Do you like Walker also? He was not available. Yeah, I do. I think on this slate, I'm going to be pretty open to a lot of different builds, but I think just straight up, I do prefer Sharps just with how much goal line work and all the high value touches he gets. I think if Walker burns you or is the guy you need on this slate, it's because he rips off a big play, right? It's, 40-yard touchdown run. And he's certainly capable of doing that, especially against a bad defense. But I'm also not convinced that he's just a straight up better play than Sharps. All right. So we're for sure, this is kind of an interesting spot here with tight end. You can make cases for a ton of different things here. I could do Jake Tongas as a bring back on my Seattle stack. I could do one of these Rams tight ends. I think what I'm going to do though, and what I've been doing this morning in my drafts, I'm really prioritizing Dalton Schultz. I just don't think this ADP is reflective of his new projection with Nico Collins out. You saw here in our projections, he's the tight end 3 on the slate as far as from a pure projection standpoint. And like I said, I think you could flip him with Henry and call him the tight end 2. So I think over the course of the next couple of days before lock, you're going to see Dalton Schultz rise above Higbee, above Parkinson, Tongas, whoever he's behind other than Henry and Loveland. So I think I'm just going to click him a decent amount today and tomorrow until that ADP adjusts. And then I'll start, mixing in these other guys a little bit more. Colin says, can you make an announcement to everyone to slow down on filling the Wildcat so I can have some bullets in there? You know what? I can't keep the people out of the Wildcat. You give the people a $3 tournament and they're going to rush to fill that bad boy. All right. So I am going to do Sam Darnold on this team. And, another thing that I think is worth mentioning on these shorter slates with only 4 games is you should be a lot more open to unconventional correlation. And there's not a lot of teams on a main slate where I do the quarterback, running back, and a pass catcher. But on this slate, I'm just trying to say, who is the offense that scores, 30 points, and can I capture as many points as possible for them? So I'm more into leaning into, running back tight end pairings. We saw last week, like DeAndre Swift, Colston Loveland, on paper, not a super conventional pairing that you feel great about. And yet on a shorter slate, that was a pairing that was very viable. So on this slate too, I think the quarterback, running back, pass catcher stuff is going to be a lot more interesting to me than it normally is. I think the Broncos would be another good example of that, like Bo Nix, RJ Harvey, and Cortland Sutton. You could do it with Josh Allen. You're not going to be able to get both Josh Allen and James Cook, but you could do, Josh Allen double stack if you want to play it through the passing game. So definitely interested in leaning more into correlation on this shorter slate. But yeah, as Colin was mentioning here, the Wildcat, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. It's only at 45%. It'll still take a while to fill this. I think you're going to be able to get your entries in. All right, I need to get a little bit of water here. All right, this time we got the 102. So could do another JSN team here. GM fully loaded. He's not messing around with the San Francisco inspired avatar. What? Give me the prediction for the game fully loaded. Are Niners pulling off the upset? Assuming that Fennis doesn't take, or assuming Fennis does take Puka, in fully loaded's honor, I will take CMC here. But if he passes on him, I will take Puka. But we'll mix it up since we just drafted a JSN team. All right, he goes CMC. All right, there you go. So we're going to go Puka. I will say, just already seeing how kind of like ADP breaks, you're definitely going to want to pair Puka Nacua with Stafford as much as possible. I mean, those guys, their high-end outcomes are definitely correlated. But if you are drafting a decent amount of teams, I want to have Puka in other iterations as well. Have him as a one-off on a, Bo Nix stack, or, have him on as a one-off as part of a Drake May stack, etc. So don't get completely locked in to always locking him with Stafford. All right, here's the prediction. No bias, no homerism here. Niners win in a hard-fought battle. I will say this. So for my divisional round weekend with my buddies, I always push us in one direction or another with some of these angles. And I think I want to take the Niners spread. I think 7.5 just feels a little too high for me. It's at 7 now. I guess 7.5 in some spots. I do like San Francisco with the points there. I don't think I have the balls to float the money line, but I'll certainly take a full touchdown there. I think I kind of lean under as well. A lot of times Stafford goes at 6-7 with Adams. Yeah. I mean, if you're the Adams drafter, that's really the only way you're going to get Stafford paired with Adams, because otherwise he's not coming back around. Look at this, back-to-back drafts where Stafford went to the non-Devontae Adams and Puka teams. All right, I'm going to keep taking my guy, RJ Harvey here. We'll get RJ Harvey and Puka. Don't even have to worry about a chalky Stafford Puka stack because Stafford got swiped from me. Scott is asking about advancement stuff. So every contest except the Mitten 3 has advanced. I believe they're getting to that today. There was an issue where I believe there was overlay in that contest, so advancing the pods wasn't as simple as their normal mechanics, but every other contest has advanced except the Mitten 3. All right, let's see here. What would we like to do? We can mix it up. Let's do Ken Walker this time. We did Sharps last time. We'll pair Harvey with Walker, and we got Puka here. Look at this. Someone on Twitter, I just noticed, was in my previous draft and is trolling me about selecting Stephon Diggs. This individual was in our last draft, says, enjoy 99% owned Diggs while I ride 1% Kyle Williams to tens of thousands of dollars. Stick to cash games, chump, he says. Battle Royale is for risk takers, large-scale ballers, triple alphas, etc. Man, Cam, there are a lot better ways to burn $7 than by selecting Kyle Williams on this slate. I can point you in the direction of some great charities if you're looking to make a $7 donation. Kyle Williams had his chance. He had the dream setup against the New York Jets, one of the worst secondaries we've ever seen. Kayshon Boutte's out. Everybody's out. And I think he earned, 4 targets? It ain't happening this year for Kyle Williams, especially with Boutte back. And you don't even need to draft Kyle Williams, because Kayshon Boutte is barely getting drafted himself. You can make the Kyle Williams play at low ownership with Kayshon Boutte. All right, what could we do here? We could play Puka opposite Caleb Williams. That could be fun. We could pick one of these Bears wide receivers. Let's see, what do our projections like as far as these wide receivers? We do have Burden projected the highest, which I think this order makes sense. Burden, then Moore, then Rome. Caleb Williams goes. So much for that idea. How about we do a Drake May? Let's do a Drake May. You know what I'm going to do here? I guess he could technically. I'm just going to take Drake May first, and then I will take either Diggs, Henry, or Boutte with my next pick. So he goes Hunter Henry, which is fine. I might just have to take Stephon Diggs again to really stick it to Cam. Let's go look at our New England Patriots projections here for the wide receivers. Diggs, 8.5, Boutte, 6.5, Demario Douglas, 3.7, Kyle Williams, 2.1. My man out here, standing, glazing Kyle Williams, who can't even out-project Pop Douglas. Come on, Cam. Come on, Cam. Stephon Diggs, Drake May. And then we can figure out whatever we want to do at tight end. Yeah, it's a rite of passage for the Patriots to burn a wide receiver selection every year. Going all the way back to Tyquan Thornton, N'Keal Harry, Javon Baker, Kyle Williams. I think there's like 2 or 3 others that I'm not even remembering right now. Polk, yeah, of course. Jalen Polk last year. Yeah, it was both Polk and Baker. All right, what tight end do we want to do here? Let's look again at our tight end projections. Not just New England. I think Kyle Williams has flashed a little bit, but I would say it's a major concern for a wide receiver to land on a depth chart like that with a quarterback as good as Drake May with so little competition for targets and not to be able to earn a role. I'm not going to pour dirt on his grave and say it could never happen, but it's a pretty massive red flag to not be able to earn targets in that kind of environment. All right, Drake May, RJ Harvey, Kenneth Walker, Puka, and Diggs. And I was going to look at our projections here. I think we could do, Tongus went. I think we can do Kincaid. If Kincaid doesn't go, we can do Kincaid as the bring back on RJ Harvey. Or we could double up with the Seattle thing without Darnold and just say, hey, Drake May outscores Darnold, but Barner and Kenneth Walker score the touchdowns for Seattle. I could see that hitting. I don't really want to be below this Evan Ingram line. You could do Parkinson or Higbee with Puka, but that's just a tighter needle to thread because if both Puka and whatever Rams tight end you select are optimal, it's pretty likely that Stafford's outscoring May in that scenario. So I think I'll play the I'll call it right now. This week's Colston Loveland, DeAndre Swift is Kenneth Walker and AJ Barner. I don't actually believe that. I'm just telling myself a story with this lineup. Let's see here. You guys want to draft a different contest? This contest is filling kind of quick. You guys want to do the extra point single entry here? 3 more people if you guys want to friends and family this. Only 564 entries. $10 entry. It is a single entry. It's just $1K to first, but pretty small tournament here. And we can, in the smaller the tournaments get, the more and more correlation we can kind of lean into here as well. But we are going to need 3 more. This is the $10 single entry. If we can't get this filled, I'll hop back in another draft. But, only 1 more, so we should be good. I had not considered drafting Arroyo. I don't even think we have him in our projections. Is he for sure ruled in? I know he was trending to be back. It's probably a little too thin. I think you should probably get to guys like Komet, Hooper, Dawson, Knox first. All right, we need 1 more here for our $10 single entry contest. Here we go. All right. So we are going to be drafting from the 1-5. So no Puka, no JSN, no CMC for us today. In this one, at least. So this could be, it's probably a Bills player, right? Like you're choosing between Allen or Cook here. I think I prefer Cook, but I definitely want some Allen on this slate. I mean, he had 30. I mean, what this guy's doing with basically no help is truly incredible. A 30 fantasy point game. He did need 2 rushing touchdowns to get there, though. Not saying he can't do that. It's very much his MO, but that stuff can be a little volatile week to week. But we're going to take whichever bill remains here. So yeah, we will do we'll do James Cook here. We'll get James Cook as Josh Allen goes. Another thing here on slates like this, typically, I'm like 2 running backs from the same game. I would be like, ideally I'd want to break ties away from that. But on a shorter slate, I think there is a big enough gap here, and Loveland does go, that I don't mind having RJ Harvey and James Cook on the same team, especially in a really small tournament as well. So I'm going to grab both of these dudes. And I think they could easily both have 20 carries in this spot. Let's see here. Are we going to get our first Stafford to Puka after it didn't happen in the first few stream drafts we did here? We're waiting on Tiger Wet. What a name. Brendan, I would assume, will grab Stafford with one of his 2 selections there. We have a CMC Swift team. We have a Josh Allen Kyron team. There's the Adams Loveland mini correlation there. I'm definitely interested in both Bo Nix and RJ Harvey on this roster together. But Tiger Wet might also want Bo Nix with his Cortland Sutton selection. I do really quickly want to look at the projections for the Denver Broncos wide receivers, see how far Sutton separates. So yeah, we have Sutton at 9.5. We do have Pat Bryant, the rookie, flipping Troy Franklin, which I also agree with. 6.6 Pat Bryant, Franklin 5.2, and then Mims and little Jordan Humphrey much further down there. All right, so this is going to be a wide receiver selection for me. Or you know what I might do? I might just lock up Bo Nix. I think when I look at these quarterbacks, I do prefer Nix to May, specifically on a team where I have Harvey. So I'm just going to lock that up. I'm already kind of playing this game being higher scoring. And then I could just go 3 for 3 on drafting Stephon Diggs just to really stick it to Cam. This is the bulletin board material I've needed for this full draft, is just Cam. All right. So yeah, Diggs goes there. So I won't take Diggs. Let's see here. Why don't we get a Hunter Henry share? We've been missing out on him. He was limited in practice yesterday, which isn't ideal. But that's fine. We're going to take a Hunter Henry share here. $99 owned. Yeah, bye, Pete. I know, I'm toast. I'm toast. I wonder if Cam's also fading 100% owned Puka and 100% JSN. Why take 100% owned JSN when you can just take 20% owned Rashid Shaheed? I mean, come on. Why take 100% owned Puka when you can take 2% Kanata Mumpfield? There you go. See, we can keep playing this game. The thing people forget about Stephon Diggs as well, guys, revenge game. Stephon Diggs could get back-to-back revenge games. People forget. Houston Texans, Stephon Diggs, 1 year. Can you imagine? Diggs gets to go beat Houston, then beat the Patriots. Then beats the Bills. All right, so the one guy that I really want here, I want Pat Bryant for sure. I want this Bo Nix, RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant stack. And then I think the wide receiver I want here is Jaden Higgins. So I'm going to play a mini correlation of Hunter Henry and Jaden Higgins. And I was kind of talking about this with, my draft board froze over here. My bad. I don't know what happened there. Did that? Oh, there we go. I mentioned this with Dalton Schultz, but it obviously applies to Higgins as well. You're going to see these guys shoot up in ADP. And by shoot up, that sounds probably more dramatic than it'll actually be. But they're going to inch up once this Nico stuff is confirmed out. So I would take advantage right now of like getting as much late last round Dalton Schultz and Jaden Higgins as you can, because those guys are going to get more expensive when the field kind of catches up to the reality of Nico likely being out. All right, let's see here. Do we want to do another BR? I got about 10 more minutes here where we can do this. I also, though, I just remembered, I do have to tell you guys about our sponsor here. Shout out to Xfinity, who also sponsors our projections over here on Fantasy Life, our Xfinity best projections. So let me get this up on screen here. And if you guys call yourself a sports fan, you got to have Xfinity. All the games, all in one place. They have every pro football game and over 1,000 college games, highlights and alerts all in one place. You can build a multi-view to watch 4 games at once. The Xfinity Fan View includes live scores, odds, and stats all in one place, personalized to you. There's also enhanced 4K. Xfinity Enhanced 4K looks incredible. Also, a voice remote. Just say the words football to access all of these features. Imagine all of your football all in one place. It's that easy. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Restrictions do apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. Thank you, Xfinity, for subsidizing me drafting battle royale teams here on a glorious Thursday afternoon. Let's go ahead and do another battle royale draft here. It was last week, was one of the first weeks I didn't get my full 150 drafts into the BR. I think I ended up halfway there, 75, and ended up having one of my best weeks of the season. So maybe I need to run that back again this year and go for just 75 drafts. I think that's my sweet spot. Let's see so I'm just trying to think of some of the other angles I like, talking through the slate. I like the late Texans stuff. And I think pairing them with CJ Stroud is kind of like a double whammy where CJ Stroud isn't getting drafted a ton. And then on top of that, you can get guys like Schultz and Higgins and Kirk who are going to project more. So I like that angle. I like the team level bets. So like the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, all from the same team. Do you know what build would be kind of fun to do that I haven't really gotten a chance to do is something with a Caleb stack? I think the spots you really want to look at this week are these team level wide receivers where the projections might be fragile. And I think the Bears are a really good example of this. As much as we all like Luther Burden, you can see here the projections are really close. Burden 7.7, Moore 6.5, Rome 6. And then if we go and we look at these ADPs here for the Bears, you can see that Rome is basically not getting drafted at near the clip that DJ Moore and Luther Burden are. So that is kind of one of those situations where if the field gets overconfident in a wide receiver on a team where it's more up in the air, I think that's a spot to kind of try to exploit. So in this instance, it would be like a Caleb Williams to Rome Odunze stack would be kind of a fun way to play that. I am going to just go with James Cook again, or we could build an Allen since we haven't done that yet. You don't have to take, if you want to do the Rome angle, it doesn't have to be with Caleb Williams. You can play him as a one-off. Let's do a Josh Allen here. I do think Allen is a little pricey. We were looking at our projections. He projects similar to Matthew Stafford, who's going, a full round later. That said, the way I like to play these battle royale games is really mixing up my exposures in round one. So if I always take James Cook over Josh Allen, I'm basically never going to have Josh Allen on a team. And I don't want to go to battle with no Josh Allen because he can put up 30 when all of the other quarterbacks put up 23. Like that's a pretty common thing. Last week, he got matched by Jordan Love. So the Josh Allen score was kind of irrelevant on last week's slate. You wanted CMC or Puka Nacua and then pair them with Jordan Love late. That was kind of the ideal roster construction. But things can certainly break where Allen puts up 30 and no other quarterback's top 25, and you really want to have him. All right, we'll see what my guy Nez does here. Speaking of Nez, we'll be, like I said, doing that full Underdog slate breakdown off and on the clock. That'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern today. I'm going to do Harvey opposite Allen. I know you guys are probably sick of watching me click RJ Harvey, but man, I think he's the best round 2 pick here. And I think it's an awesome matchup. And if I already have Josh Allen, I like getting the two kind of ball dominant players in that game. So Josh Allen, RJ Harvey, mini correlation speaks to me. Playoff Rondo says Burden's still running the wrong routes. Yeah, I mean, the Burden spike weeks down the stretch were really correlated with with Rome Odunze being out. And then we saw things really flatten for the wide receivers when Rome returned. Colston Loveland kind of maintained his elite role, but Burden wasn't getting the same kind of targets he was as when Rome was out. Let's see here. You know what? Let's get my guy Woody Marks this time. I was talking about him. I think Ramondre or Woody Marks are good selections here. but we've mainly been doing late round pass catchers here on the Texans and haven't done the Woody Marks thing yet. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm a little bummed not to get Khalil Shakir. You know, Shakir's been such a massive disappointment this year, but had a 12-target game last week. 12 targets. Still only resulted in 14.2 fantasy points. But again, on a slate like this, I think those 14.2 points will certainly play. I think I'll be looking at, and you don't have to force a stack with Allen. That's been a macro theme all year. But again, on these smaller slates, you know, if Josh Allen is nuking, a pass catcher is probably coming along for the ride. So I probably will consider or target Dalton Kincaid here. Man, no one really wants Diggs in these, do they? Nobody wants Stephon Diggs. It's all because of this tweet from Cam. Cam is getting so much play from this tweet. I just keep pulling it up as my bulletin board material over and over. All right, I am going to do Diggs. I think Diggs opposite Woody Marks is a nice little game correlation here. So you guys just tuned in to watch me draft RJ Harvey and Stephon Diggs over and over again for an entire hour. Hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. I can't determine what these rooms do. I just got to keep clicking the best plays over and over again. Then the question, I think how I would like to land this plane ideally would be, so we could do two different things. We could do like, we could do Kincaid and like a Houston pass catcher, or we could do Schultz and like a Brandon Cooks type. I actually want to look at our projections for the Bills wide receivers because we haven't looked at that yet. And I want to see what we're doing with those. Yeah, so Shakir projects for 7.9. Cooks projects for 5.2. Keon Coleman is going to be forced to play because Shavers is done. Joshua Palmer, I believe, is out. They elevated Curtis Samuel. I think you can take shots on Cooks and Coleman for sure. It's a tough matchup. I mean, like the Broncos secondary has been good. If Jay Diesel doesn't, yeah, I am going to take Kincaid though. Like if we include the tight end in here, 7-point projection for Kincaid, he projects not that dissimilar to Shakir and better than Cooks in them. So that's kind of the preferred way I want to play it. But I do think you can double stack Allen. Like I think you can do Allen. I would basically probably do two of Shakir, Kincaid, and Cooks. I guess you could get to Coleman. I mean, he had that touchdown last week, but man, the targets, he had one target, or he didn't have a touchdown last week. It was just that big catch for 36 yards. So this is a spot where I have Allen, Kincaid, I have Harvey, I have Marks opposite Diggs. So I could double stack. Why don't we double stack it? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do it with Cooks? We'll kind of get that classic thing where Denver gets a lead, RJ Harvey is rolling on the ground, and Buffalo has to go comeback mode with Allen, Cooks, and Kincaid. We'll do a little double stack there. Sorry, I was off that screen. So here she is, Josh Allen, RJ Harvey, Woody Marks, Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid, Brandon Cooks. Like I said, if you guys want to watch me draft more teams, I'm going to be doing a breakdown with the Badge Bros at 2 p.m. Eastern. Also going to be breaking down the DraftKings slate here in just a couple of minutes on my channel as well. Otherwise, make sure you guys are subscribed to the Fantasy Life newsletter. Hop in our Guillotine leagues as well. Even if you missed out on the initial run, we are still running those this week. I've been writing about it a little bit in the newsletter. There are different price points here. You can also create a free league. If you just want to do a private league here with your friends, you can do that. But some fun strategy there, very similar to our season-long Guillotine format, where each week the worst team is eliminated. So if you do a single chop league, there's obviously just 4 teams. If you do a double chop league where the 2 worst teams are eliminated, 6 players can draft in that one. So go check that out. Fun format there if you miss kind of the season-long managed element to these playoff contests. Otherwise, I'm not sure if we'll have one of these next week. We'll figure that out, but I'll definitely have 1 or 2 more streams for you guys before the end of the season. Appreciate everyone who's watching on X and here on YouTube. Thank you to all of you guys in the chat as well. And yeah, enjoy the games this weekend and good luck in the DFS.